welcome to another Empowering Your Circle podcast. And today I'm so excited to be talking to Shelley Whitehead. I've known Shelley for a long time now. We kind of lost touch a little bit. Now we've reconnected, and I'm so looking forward to keeping that connection going now because she is an amazing lady and makes me feel inspired. In fact, I remember a number of years ago, I was feeling really low, and all of a sudden, my phone pinged, and it was a message from Shelley. It almost like she knew that she needed to send me a message at that very point in time. I don't know if you remember that, but
Yeah.
that particular time meant so much to me because it was kind of like I was starting to feel a bit of a dip, and I think that's what you do for people. You know, you're a very authentic relationship expert. So I know you coach people all around the world, um, but you provide empowering support and you help people kind of think through their relationship, um, and think about the greater self that we have inside of ourselves and how we can portray that in a better way. So I know you have amazing practical tools, um, but you help deepen those powerful connections within ourselves and our couple and our community, which we're going to kind of talk about. So it really is a pleasure to kind of have you on my podcast because I really want to get others to understand how you tick, what's about you, and how you kind of create enchanted lives around us, because I
Oh,
think it's so important.
oh my
So
gosh,
welcome.
how beautifully you've expressed, um, our connection and what I do, what I love. And I do remember that day when I texted you and you came back. And gosh, who of us doesn't dip? Who
Mm,
of us doesn't descend into what I call sometimes deep, dark south? And, most of the time we can kind of be at the equator, but the way I live my life, my enchanted life, and the way I teach everyone I work with, be it that it's an individual, a couple, or one of my groups, is to strive to, you know, focus on their true north. And it was
oh, I
something I
love it.
learned, yeah, something I learned many years ago when I was training to work with couples. And I've been blessed to work with amazing, amazing, inspirational, very competent women. And not that there aren't competent and amazing men out there, but the ones I trained with, a woman called Heidi Schleifer, and then Sue Windgens, who is not only a very special friend of mine, but has taken over a lot of that work. And, together, I host and Sue runs the couples training now for therapists, which we do actually upstairs in my home. But going back to Haiti and to Sue, um, they're two women who have really inspired and taught me that no matter what happens in life, when we dip, um, it's to find the strength within to go back up there again. That's why I
Yeah,
always say, Hazel, that having a vision for our lives is so important. Um,
yeah. I mean,
and
on my fridge, my
Mhm.
mum years ago, because obviously my mum and dad are no longer with me,
Yeah.
but she gave me a. Mum was all about fridge magnets. Have to ask any of my family. Her fridge was full of them, and so we always kind of knew what gift to kind of bring, some wording and stuff. Like I took one from here, and it said "Keep calm and carry on" because we needed to calm her down sometimes. But one of the ones she had and one of the ones she bought was
Yeah.
about being stronger, like you are stronger than you think. And so there are times I'll get up and I'll look at that and it just brings me back into focus about where I need to be. So I think sometimes it's about a message, something that you can, that triggers that inside of you, but we all have to find out what that is. So I guess, you mentioned Haiti and the other lady, sorry, I forgot her name.
Sue.
And but are they the people that inspired you to get into this relationship expertise and things, or was there something else that kind of drew you into helping people?
Sue and Haiti showed up in my journey of, you start on a path and then doors start opening up. And then you kind of go that way and that way. But I think the most important thing is to start somewhere. So my background is I'll start at the very beginning. And I come from crazy early beginnings. My parents shouldn't have been parents. I mean, I'm glad they were because, my brother and I are here. And so growing up in a very dysfunctional um, household where our needs, were just ignored. And
Right.
that set up a pattern for me to make choices when it came to relationships and to deal with challenges that, as I look back, when you talk about, you being strong inside, and it's that resilience. Somehow I had resilience, and I was in a 21-year marriage. I got married the first time at 19, which is insanity. Had my three babies, had country moves, um, ended up, you can hear, if anyone listening, this is a very South African accent. And my husband was diagnosed with kidney cancer. And we'd hit a point, year 13 of our marriage, where um, moving forward didn't look like an option. And yet somehow we kind of, you can imagine crawling through a tunnel with your elbows. We did.
Yeah.
And, when his cancer was diagnosed, anything that was really very much of an issue became not an issue. And I think when you're facing life and death, the things that we make issues just kind of fall into insignificance. And he passed away some years later. But when he was ill, a really good girlfriend of mine said, the kids need help. And that was my main drive and intention, that my children should be okay.
Hmm.
And I arrived at a therapy center for each child to see their therapist. And I was called into a room and said, your therapist is waiting for you. I too had a
Hmm.
therapist waiting for me. And
Oh.
so began this 4-year journey of therapy. They were not only bereavement therapists, they were imago therapists. And imago
Can you
is a
stop and tell me what that
methodology.
is?
Yeah, Greek word, Hazel.
I
um,
should know then.
IMAGO. And it's really about the mirror. And relationships are often a mirror image for the woundedness and the work that we need to do that's deep inside us. And so began those first steps into this fascinating world of therapy. I actually met the founder of kind of imago therapy, Dr. Havel Hendricks, in 2004. And I read all of his books, keeping, and they're in front of me, Keeping the Love You Find, Getting the Love You Want, Receiving Love. And I thought, gosh, this is something that I really, really enjoy. Anyway, some years later, I got married again and I moved to the UK. 3 children, a dog, and a cat. And so started this whole new life in a new country. I am familiar with country moves. I moved to Germany with my first husband some years before. And I found myself in a really, really tricky relationship. Tricky being a gentle word. Um, one of the skills I teach now is the skill of discernment. And it takes time. Discernment is about identifying patterns. Um, so in the very beginning, I'm in this new country, and that close girlfriend of mine, Dr. Anne-Marie Lydell, clinical psychologist, and a friendship I truly treasure, mentioned something about NLP. And I thought, what is this NLP? The early days of, kind of hopping onto
Mhm.
the internet and discovering. And I came across a coaching website because there must have been an affiliate link. And it looked amazing. So I contacted them. They sent me this info pack. And it's like, that's it. I'm going to study coaching. I'd been through bereavement. I'm now studying coaching. I qualified within a year. And I'm in a very difficult relationship because I hadn't known about discernment. I married someone who was a childhood friend who came back to South Africa. My world changed with one kiss. It was magical. And I married him 8 weeks later. I'm glad I did it that way because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I hadn't. But our values and standards were different. And what we wanted, end goal, was different. And we tried it for 7 years. And it made both of us more and more miserable. And the body starts to talk, the body gets ill, the quality of life, and it's just awful. And um, husband X, as I refer to him with no bitterness, no resentment, needed to breathe and left. And my world crashed. As
Mhm.
so often happens with clients because grief lands in the space.
Yeah.
And I was going through grief in a different way, but it was relatable to what I had experienced before in many ways. There's no form of loss I have not had in my life. So, out of that process of finding the resilience deep inside, um, healing from heartbreak, my first book, Healing Your Heartbreak, was written, and it became a course as well. And for many years, I'd been working with individuals who'd lost someone and also going through heartbreak very successfully. But it was when I hit that ground zero in my own life, it became very clear what the next steps were to help myself. And for the last 20 years, I've been doing this work, and then it expanded.
Hmm. Wow, what a journey. I mean, if people are not listening to that and thinking Shelley can resonate with what we're going through, I'd be very surprised because there's a lot of people out there who will be facing a range of different areas in their life that they need kind of to get through. And it's a very tricky situation to navigate when you're going through stresses in a relationship, and also, grief in different ways. People are finding their own ways to navigate. Throughout my life, I've realized I talk to different people and people find their own support, their own mechanism to try and understand what they need to get through and that. But sometimes it's hard for people to reach out and ask for help. I think that's one of the biggest things, whether it's business orientated or probably even more so personally, to say, I need help. Like it's a really big, it's a very small kind of statement or a very, very few words, but it's one of the ones that I think people really struggle with to be able to say, I need help. And
It's a huge strength to recognize that we can't do this on our own.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm very blessed in the world. I'm surrounded by the most amazing coaches and therapists, and this is what we love to talk about. This is what we do. And I completely understand when someone sits in front of me, as someone once said, Shelley, do you know the worst thing about today? And I say, tell me. And they say to me, I woke up
Mm.
because it's not that they're suicidal, but life has no meaning. They can't see the light. True north doesn't exist. Deep dark south is all that, is. And for 3 months after the second marriage ended, I was in that space. And I was surrounded by so much love and support because it's about communities that we build. And sometimes those closest to us or the ones that we think are going to be there don't have the capacity to be there.
Yeah, I
Not because
noticed
they
that
don't
you've
want to.
written. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've written an amazing blog post about communities because, before our podcast, I was like, okay, I need to go and just really and truly hone up on the latest things that Sally has done. But the blog post that you wrote about communities, because I believe it's really important to have a supportive community. It might not be like a huge amount. It might be like a very small amount of people that you can go and talk to, that you can kind of just pick up the phone to and just sort of say, I just need 5 minutes. And then that's it. It's a range of different support, as you mentioned. So because we need different people at different times of our lives, why is this important? But how, I mean, obviously we can direct people to your blog post, but how can people look at creating their own communities if they're feeling really low? They need to bring themselves back out. It's a really, they might not necessarily know where to go or what to do. It's very powerful to be able to know how to navigate that next step. So what could people be doing?
There's a lot of loneliness surrounding many people. And fortunately, I've moved countries. I've been to a non-English speaking country. I landed in Germany many years ago. And before mobile phones or cell phones, before the internet. And I was going to be very lonely. So the first thing I needed to do was to learn the language. And, my grammar's terrible for anyone who does speak German, but my understanding's very good. And I needed to find like-minded people. So going into the things that we love doing or need to do. My daughters were very little at that stage. One was 6 months old. I needed to find a community of mums that my children could be connected to. And I did. I joined two groups. There was the British women, the American women, and I also made some German friends. And my children had a network and a community. Um, then I moved to the UK. What did I love to do? Well, I said to relationships. But if I'd loved baking or hiking or paddleboarding or rock climbing, I mean, I'm not mentioning um, physical things here, writing, um, history, I would have found a community that I could join who would meet those needs. So I think
Mhm.
it always starts with something that we love to do. As you know, I'm quite an avid networker. I joined a networking group
Yeah.
of women in the UK in business, and from that I've made some really wonderful friends. I went to the gym. I had a personal trainer, but I made some friends at the gym, and we just get chatting. So there's something about putting ourselves out, saying hello, being approachable, and then doing something we love in a group who is very much like-minded. If you play football, you go there. If you play tennis, if you um, give me an activity that isn't very physical, like pasta
Paint,
making, painting,
painting,
yeah,
kind of, I don't know,
decorating,
baking. Yeah,
yeah,
lots of
oh,
different things. Yeah.
yeah, decorating, learning how to do your own wallpapering.
Yeah.
Um, there are so many courses with like-minded individuals that we can join. Learn a skill, follow a passion, get into a physical activity, find a like-minded community in a religious group, a spiritual group, a yoga group, um, go on a retreat, you
Yeah.
know, close by in the community. And my husband and I are looking to move to the country. We won't give up London, but the main thing there is about community. He
Yeah.
sculpts, he runs, he cycles. He'll find a cycling group, a sculpting group, whatever. And I already have friends where we're looking. So there's my community.
Yeah.
From dance to yoga to whatever it might be, I'll be there.
Excellent. Okay. So lots of moves still ahead of you then, Sally. So
Yes, there's always something else happening. But I hope that's
absolutely.
helpful for people who are feeling lonely. Um, we've never been more connected, like with devices and communication. We've also never been more isolated. It's
Mm,
very easy to just be at home and everything be delivered here and you don't need to go out. And I'm guilty of that because it's easy for me to be in one space. I just go between a consulting room and now I call this my Zoom room. Um, but getting out into community and connecting with others is important. The other
mm,
way is also to invite people around. A very simple way, just have a pizza and bring a bottle of wine in the evening. Um,
yeah.
and bring your pizza, bring your wine, and let's all get together.
Yeah.
I love entertaining, so I do that frequently. But there's no need to be lonely if we reach out and
I think
find
it,
groups of similar interest. Yeah.
yeah, because like you, I mean, I moved here from Australia like about 12 years ago now. And I remember when I first came, it was all about settling the boys more than
Mm,
anything else. It was more
mm,
about, because I remember a fellow networker of ours, Claire,
mm,
was my business coach at the time. And she gave me this, and we went to a coffee shop and she said, close your eyes, open your eyes, and just tell me any words that just come out. And I'd been here 6 months thinking I was ready to start a business, to do all these things. And she said, oh my gosh, you are nowhere near that. Like
mm,
your brain is so about everyone else and settling people. It is definitely not about you. So we did it again another few months later, and suddenly me was more at the top of the list. So then I had to kind of go, okay, what does me look like now? And I didn't know. And I think that's where I first met you and others when I came to,
mm,
the networking, because Claire said, just come. And I said, I don't really know what I'm going to tell anyone because I don't really know what it is I'm going to do. And so, but everybody became supportive.
mm,
And and a lot of the people that I met back then, including yourself, when I went into corporate for 6 years and I came out and rejoined the same networking this year, I felt like I came home. It was like I wasn't lonely in my own business because all the people that I'd met back then were still there for me at the same time, even though there'd been a gap. And I
mm,
think you forget about how your connections are still there,
mm.
and maybe they're not there when you don't need them, but when you do need them, you can bring them back round. And I think, moving to a different country, moving into a different area, a change in your life completely, shouldn't mean that you can't have those communities.
You know,
Um,
Hazel, what I'm hearing you say is very important. Anything new or any curved ball that sideswipes us, and we hit that place of I don't know, the first thing is to get grounded. Without
mm,
being truly grounded within ourselves and where we are and a next step, it's impossible to grow anything. And
yeah,
so you found some support, you needed to get grounded. Groundedness is the foundation for expansion. And, before we can grow our big wings, which I know we all have,
yeah,
people forget they have wings when they're ungrounded. So they get the support. I mean, someone's sitting with me, it's like, okay, we're going to grow those wings because I can see them. Um, but it's from a very grounded foundation, knowing exactly what it is that you need to expand.
yeah. And now I couldn't say that any better. Thanks, Shelley. But one of the other things that we often hear about the saying 4 seasons in one day, and
Mm,
I'm just looking outside right now, and I'm like,
mm,
it's kind of wintry feel, supposed to not rain later. It's just like I don't know. So we all go through all these things, but in one of your LinkedIn posts, you talk about love can have 4 seasons in a day.
mm.
So I guess what inspired that particular, is it the 4 seasons in a day? What does it mean and how do we navigate through those four kind of changes in a day?
Okay. I love that you're bringing this up. I'm very connected to nature, the symbols in nature, the seasons, and everything is cyclical in our lives. I truly believe that. And I've experienced it in the winter of meeting someone. It's like popping a little bulb into the ground. And we're taking our time to just see that the conditions are right for things to grow and thrive. And sometimes the conditions aren't right. A little bulb is not going to pop up in the middle of winter in the snow or in the icy cold and start flowering because the conditions aren't right. So,
Yeah,
winter, groundedness, using the skills of really being able to connect to ourselves, understanding how we feel, sensing the space between ourselves and the other person is what we do in that kind of winter time. Are the conditions right for me to put down these little roots and I'm covered by soil. It's not clear yet. Just take my time. And then we get into the spring of the relationship. This is the, seeking growth and a sense of adventure time. And that little bulb starts to pop its head out. And I'm seeing, it's not springtime, my little daffodil, tips popping out at the moment. And they're taking their time because we've got to get through winter. And then I know by March they're going to be, popping out with, the bud. Um, it's the discovery, the fun adventure things in springtime in a relationship. And then we go through that stepping into sunshine. It's that sense of joy because now we're fully grounded, we're blooming. And, our presence with someone, the receptivity and the generosity that we are experiencing, the play and the passion, it's in a very different sense. And then we have autumn. I still have leaves on my silver birches. I have 6 silver birches in my garden. And the colors have been magnificent this autumn in watching the leaves turn. And it's the same thing in a relationship. It's about that sense of space that develops as the leaves start to fall, but it's also about the shadow side of a relationship. And it's those tricky times or where the growth is needed, where we need to balance things, where we need to repair and reconnect. This is the work in getting ready, as we let go of things so we can embrace something new.
Mhm.
And it's about that focused intention as well in a relationship. Um, but it's very seasonal, cyclical. A couple who've been together for 50 years have gone through many seasons together. They've birthed, they've grown, they've buried, they've changed. You can have the same partner and a different sense of that partner showing up. In the 10 years my husband and I have been together, I think I've had about 3 husbands in one because of the seasons and the cycles we've been through in our growing together. There can be a stuckness in a season where that bulb just doesn't come out. I planted bulbs this past summer or spring. Actually, it was more in the kind of going into spring. They never bloomed. Not one of them. There was
Wow.
something not right. And that can happen with stuckness in a relationship. It doesn't bloom. It's not going to move forward. And that's where that skill of discernment is so important. Taking our time. I'm known as the queen of go slow with all the seasonal and cyclical stuff. And yeah, because I've moved too fast in the past. Although it was of a great benefit to myself, my work, and everyone I work with, um, I would never do that again. So when I
Right.
met my husband, 10 years ago, I really took my time. We both did. And it's right. I have someone who won't get stuck, who will do the work with me. And that's essential because, the work I do doesn't allow for stuckness.
No. Very. Oh, well, thank you for taking us on the journey of the
Mm,
4 in a day. I
yeah.
think it's really important that we understand that we can get stuck, that there is still light as we move through, but
Mm,
it's really important again to go back to that kind of thing. Ask for help if you are stuck and you're
mm,
feeling like I want this enriched. I don't want to say goodbye to it. What do I do? Well, like, what's my next step? What's my stages that I need to go through? Because
that's it.
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people. I mean, I know when I look at my parents' generation,
Mm,
they were never in that kind of let's just go through a divorce. Let's work. It was all about let's work through what we need to work through. And, there was obviously underlying issues. I look at my parents and I think there were underlying issues throughout. But when my dad was passing away, the pure love that we saw between the two of them, our entire family, was what stood out
Mm.
to me. Like it was no matter any of the other things, no matter what things there may have been underlying throughout or whatever, that
Mm.
pureness, and it was completely pure.
How beautiful.
And you kind of think that's what people want, but sometimes you can't necessarily find it straight away. So,
Love
um,
can be clouded over by, um, yeah, can get clouded and lost. And your parents' generation were the stayers. They stayed in the
yeah,
home and the job and in the relationship. Yeah, I mean, some people didn't, but they did.
yeah,
Because it was more that they stayed together, where it's very easy to exit. And as I've said to individuals, and even in our own relationship, it's like whatever we don't deal with, we will deal with in another relationship. Or it's going to come up. You may not deal with it, but it'll keep coming up. It's kind of like life comes and it smacks us awake. And it goes like, this is the same issue. And we can trace it back. We look back and we go, somebody said to me the other day, why do I always keep choosing partners who don't show up for me, who don't give me the time? So there's something there. It's that mirror, the imago. There's a core wound. And, this is our work together. And I do such a beautiful process with my couples, or I have such a beautiful process that I do with my couples. Um, it's, the couples connection process, and it's a 3-day process that builds profound connection where we go north initially. It's different to traditional couples therapy that could focus on this issue and that issue, and there are major issues that come up between couples. We go north, but then in a very gentle way, we address conflict and get to see the energy of conflict and what's happening beneath the conflict and how it's rooted more than anything in past relationships and in childhood. And that comes into the space. And there's such a new understanding and a very deep learning. Um, and then I take my couples on a further journey where I work with them, every month to keep them using the methodology they've been taught to be seen and to be heard.
right,
Uh, and so that would probably be different to what our parents would have gone through. They muddled through, stayed with it
yeah,
dysfunctionally to come back to love.
yeah,
But now we have different skills like awe and, our own awe that we witness in life. And it's our sense of aliveness that we need inside ourselves,
yeah.
and then finding the sense of aliveness in a relationship.
See, this is why people come to me, really. um, so, is, do you currently? Because I know you're an author. You've some amazing books and courses and things like that. But is there anything that you've got kind of coming up and stuff that you think I'd really love people to get involved with and find out more about themselves or their couple, or is there any kind of things that you've got coming up?
Okay, so I've just explained to you about my couples work, the 3-day journey that we embark on together as a liberation team to liberate ourselves from
I love
patterns
that.
and behaviors. Yeah, they keep us stuck. Um, I think you personally know how very overwhelmed my life has been. I was on track to publish book number 2 just before Valentine's Day. And there's been a huge disaster. My publisher's had a stroke, and
Oh,
it's been very traumatic. Um, but it's left me, really working very hard to put a new team together for this book. And I talk about the skills of love. And I actually recorded the book as a course over a year ago, and I've been running it with groups. Um, and I have, it's transformational. And I have people who download the course individually because it's available as a DIY along with a
mhm.
98-page workbook. It's called Relationship Skills. And in my group, we call it a different name, Relationship Ready Reset. And it's men and women who love it. What I've also been growing in the past year is my private community, the Enchanted Life community. We're over 100 and something members now. And what I do is I run 2 calls a month, coaching calls, the first 2 Sundays of the month. One is an open, not recorded, bring any issue you're experiencing, and we can dive into it and answer questions and talk around it. And the second Sunday of the month is a skills-based coaching call. Um, and the one I'm running this coming Sunday is on power. It's a
Wow.
very special topic. You know, power, how we give up our power, how we reclaim our power. And these are skills. These are all the skills. You know, I do everything in 4 parts, like the seasons.
Yep.
And I have 7 skills, 7 steps, seven. You know, my next book I'm going to be writing is for couples. And these 7 skills, you know, the 28 of them, are very much my life's work because I discovered that, you know, from healing heartbreak to then wanting to find a new relationship, oops, we need some questions answered when we go dating. So I created Dating Decoder, 28 questions. They give you a really grounded foundation in what you're dealing with when you're dating someone. So you can really, that's about the skill of discernment, answer those
Right.
questions. And then couples start running into what I call the power struggle. Every relationship goes through it. Our relationship went through it. I mean, we have skills on how to deal with it. So it's not, when you go into conflict, it's not that there's something wrong. It's about needing new skills and tools to deal with it. So
Mhm.
that's why I wrote this book. Relationships fail because we don't have skills. I teach skills. I want people to be really successful, to understand themselves first, to be able to connect to another skillfully. Um, so we're on target to publish this book end of March. Springtime book.
Yay.
Uh, and I have a team working on things right now. Um, and that was my big overwhelm in pulling it all together again. And then next September, a book that's already written is going to be released because it's a January to December journal. And it's
Mm.
beautiful. Um, and so, yeah, that will be published next September. It's a beautiful Christmas gift and gift for people you love and value.
Mm. Okay, well, I'm looking forward to that, Shelley. Um,
Mm,
so just before we wrap up, it's been
mm.
so amazing. Do you have a favorite quote, or if not, a good tip for people?
Okay. Someone I admire tremendously is Esther Perel. I have followed her since her first book, Mating in Captivity, was released and devoured it. All her, you know, she is a thought leader, wonderful research, and crackers of wisdom everywhere you listen. And the one thing she always said that the quality of our lives depends on the quality of our relationships. I mean, I don't know if that's a direct quote, I might be paraphrasing, but it's so true. There was
Mm.
that 75-year Harvard study that was done, and there's a TED talk about it, following men for 75 years. You know, the different directors over the years because they didn't all make it to the end of the study. And on every level, physically, emotionally, socially, financially, um, you know, spiritually, blood tests, scans, the whole lot. They followed these individuals, and their greatest happiness was concluded from the fact that they either did or didn't have good relationships.
Mm.
Everything is a relationship. The one with ourselves. Um, you know, I joked, I don't know if you were there. The kids bought me a kitten for my birthday in July.
Oh.
And I always wanted a kitty called Jasmine. So Jasmine arrived and has, you know, grown to be so much part of our family. Jasmine went to get spayed. And then Jasmine got neutered because we discovered that Jasmine was not a female, Jasmine's male. And
Oh.
so sometimes you're in a relationship with something and then it suddenly changes and you're in a totally different relationship. And you've got to get your head around it and adjust. And I feel, you know, it's even if it's the relationship with one's kitten. You know, I have a cat that identifies as a cat. And, a boy named Jasmine. So um, everything is a relationship.
Mm.
And it's how we show up in that relationship, in connection or disconnection. Where there's disconnection is our work. Where there's disconnection with the other, be it in the workplace or in the family or our intimate relationships or social, is something we need to dive deeper into and understand that sometimes, it's boundaries that are missing, whatever it might be. But the more successful we are at the relationship with ourselves and knowing ourselves, that's where we'll be able to show up in a really healthy way with another. The healthier our relationships, the happier we are.
Oh my God, what a way to finish. Thank you so much, Shelley.
Oh,
Because
Hazel. It's
I
very
think
special
you're
being
going,
with you. Mm,
oh, well, it's same. I feel the same. Um, I think anyone could have their lives enriched by having a session with you. You just seem to be around when people need that that not their requirement, that need in their life.
mm.
And so thank you so much for being part of the session with me today.
Oh, it is my gift, my love, and my joy. And yeah, while there's breath in me, I'm going to be doing this work. I haven't gone through all of that back there to not use it to help
Yeah,
others to have beautiful lives. An enchanted life is so possible, and I'm just sitting before you as hope. So, for anyone struggling, there's always hope, and there's help out there. Don't struggle on your own, reach out. Mm.
yeah. Thank you, Shelley.
You're welcome.